Welcome back to Birds of a Feather. This is your daily Baltimore sports podcast. My name is Nathan Stroud, and today we're going to be going over the Ravens' 28-6 win over the Miami Dolphins. The game ended like 10 minutes ago, if even. Wanted to come on here and obviously get the recording of this podcast done because coming straight off the Ravens win, initial reactions and everything like that coming up. But I think initially what I want to say about this game is obviously a great win, a dominant win. Obviously, when you look at the score, it was a dominant 28-6 win. What I will say is that this game did feel a little closer than what the score entails. I think that there was a lot of problems regarding Miami's offense and their ability to take advantage of stuff in the red zone that really did make the score look not as accurate as it probably should have been. But at the same time, the Ravens' offense, it did feel like they took their foot off the gas pretty early in this game. Not early, but it kind of felt like they took their foot off the gas pretty much at the beginning of the fourth quarter. Really, like 3 quarters through this game, it kind of felt like obviously all the momentum was on the Ravens' side, and we ended up just kind of running the football, having success with running with Derrick Henry near the end of the game. But Lamar Jackson did his thing. 4 passing touchdowns, over 200 passing yards, no turnovers in his first game back on a short week with really only 1 full practice to his name. So when you take all that in mind, I'll take this. Obviously, I'll take this win any single day of the week. Now, it wasn't perfect. There is still some alarming things regarding, especially the defense. They played fine today. They only held the Dolphins to 6 points. They had 3 turnovers in this game, which is crazy, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But the defense did its thing, but they still did give up quite a bit of yards. Like, the Dolphins were able to move the ball down the field, especially in the first half, kind of with ease. But they did a really good job in the red zone, stopped them from scoring points, which at the end of the day really is all that matters in a way. But the Ravens offense in the first half did kind of struggle. They were up 14-6 going into the second half, but the offense was kind of put in good positions because of the defense and because of the special teams. They were put in good positions, which is kind of why we had only like 100 yards in the first half, but we had 14 points. So the offense in the first half wasn't perfect. Lamar did look a little rusty in the first half, but then when you look at the first 2 possessions of the second half, that looked like the prime Ravens offense that we've been looking for. And what I will say also is, when it comes to the offense, it did feel a little bit conservative on Lamar's end, which is fine. Again, when you take into account that it was a short week, again, any single Thursday night game for anyone is a short week. So it was a short week, only 1 full day of practice with Lamar Jackson, and also going on the road as well. So in terms of game script, it wasn't really necessarily in our favor in that standpoint, which is why I do think that it was a little bit conservative for Lamar, which is fine. Again, on a drive immediately coming out of the half, because we had ball coming out of the half, that drive, it really did feel like a Lamar game manager drive, but he did his thing and executed it to perfection. We were we were close to a Jackson 5. He had 4 touchdowns through 3.5 quarters of this game, but after that, we did kind of take our foot off the gas. We would run the ball on first and second down and then throw it on third down. And we know how this offensive line is. We know how it kind of collapsed for Lamar. So Lamar did get sacked a couple times in this game. The running game early was not going at all, but Derrick Henry was able to get a lot of yards in that fourth quarter, which kind of saved his day from a statistical standpoint. But overall, the Ravens get a huge win. They win this game 28-6. They're now sitting at 3-5, which obviously isn't a great record. I don't want to sit here and say that this game completely changes the complete narrative on how people see the Ravens, but I do think that it does help. Again, I do think that the first half, a big part of it had to do with some rust, but in the second half, they did play a lot better in the second half defensively and offensively. But they did take their foot off the gas, which when you take all this stuff into account, which I don't know if a lot of media outlets and First Take tomorrow or SportsCenter tomorrow is going to take that into account, but if you watch the game, you can definitely see the Ravens take their foot off the gas in that entire fourth quarter. So, again, that is a big reason why the Score probably wasn't run up a lot more, but again, a very chill, calm victory, a short week for the Ravens. We now go into a mini bye week. We get 10 days of rest here before the Vikings game next Sunday. So we go into this weekend. We get to watch football this weekend. Nice, stress-free football. Obviously going to be rooting against everyone in the division. Going to be rooting against the Browns, rooting against the Bengals, and especially rooting against the Steelers because we're coming. We're right there. You know what I mean? You look at cars, objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. That's what it kind of feels like with this Ravens team, with the Steelers and the Bengals. We're right there. Obviously, those are the most important games for the weekend this weekend on Sunday, so definitely going to be tuning into those. But it's a nice stress-free weekend. You get a victory Friday tomorrow. And again, like I said in the last episode, winning a game on Thursday Night Football is such a good feeling, especially when you win by a 22-point margin as well. It's a good feeling. It's a stress-free weekend of watching football now knowing that your team won. And we can kind of head into next week as well against the Vikings, which is going to be a harder opponent on paper than this game. But we'll see what ends up happening. But we'll get to there when we get to there. So let's just go over and recap this game. So going over the quick little box score of this game here. Lamar Jackson in his first game back. Again, I want to reiterate again. This was a short week. Lamar had one full practice on Tuesday. On Monday and Wednesday were walkthroughs. Tuesday was his only real practice of the week. And Lamar Jackson goes out there, goes 18 for 25, only has 5 incompletions, 204 passing yards, and 4 passing touchdowns with 0 interceptions and 0 turnovers in general. So a Lamar masterclass game and 143 quarterback rating. Incredible stuff by Lamar Jackson here. We've seen this so many times before where even when the yardage is kind of low passing yardage wise, the touchdowns are there, the efficiency is there. We love to see that from Lamar. And again, it was a little bit conservative in this game as well from him. He wasn't going out there and making Superman plays, but he did have some plays where he obviously did look like Lamar Jackson. But I did think that they told him just to kind of chill a little bit. We weren't taking as many deep shots as you would have thought. We weren't really, he wasn't having to super duper run around and do stuff. And we were kind of getting the ball out quick as well. But the O-line is still definitely a problem. Lamar did get sacked twice in this game. The O-line is still definitely kind of a problem when it comes to opening up the running lane. The running game didn't really get going into the fourth quarter, and in the first half, it really didn't look like it was moving at all. So getting the running game going is going to be something that's going to be big for this team moving forward. Obviously, to open up the pass game, open up the run game, and just let this offense kind of flow together as we go on throughout the season. But the offensive line, it does feel like it kind of collapses on Lamar. There was a play where Pat Ricard got absolutely bulldozed by Jalen Phillip or by Bradley Chubb, and Lamar ended up getting sacked there. But just the offensive line just needs to kind of step it up and just kind of hold it together for Lamar. And more importantly, the guards, Voorhees and Falele, did struggle a little bit in this game. You could see the interior O-line really get pressured a lot in this game. Ronnie and Roger did good. Tyler Linderbaum hasn't necessarily had the greatest year ever, based on expectation, obviously, with it being a contract year for him. But not the best game by the O-line. They did have their mishaps and stuff like that, but overall Lamar was still able to do good. And thank God the Dolphins' offense was an absolute atrocity in terms of the end zone, stuff like that. Because, again, we did win 28-6, but it wasn't the most convincing 28-6 win ever. But still, a win is a win. They looked really good in the second half. There's still a lot of positives coming out of this game. But some stuff that obviously you have to highlight because, again, you have to kind of look at the small things with this team because, again, there's no excuses right now anymore. This entire team is healthy. Everyone is good to go. Lamar's back. The defense guys are back and healthy. So there's no reason for this team to, look bad, if you know what I mean. This team should be right back looking like the Super Bowl contenders that they should be and are. Obviously, a 3-5 record isn't great, but the record doesn't necessarily tell the whole story with the injuries and stuff like that. And again, it's up to the Ravens to kind of get their way out of this hole. They were sitting at 1-5. They're now sitting at 3-5. Again, I've been talking about over and over again that 6-game stretch. They are 2 games in through that 6-game stretch. There's 4 games left of that 6-game stretch that I was talking about, and they are now 2-0. Going obviously to next week playing the Vikings and hopefully getting a win there. But things are looking good with this Ravens team. Sitting at 3-5. Again, the record doesn't tell the whole story. But going over to the rushing, Derrick Henry in the first half had like 30 rushing yards. He was not doing anything in that first half. It was looking really rough for him. But then in the second half, he really did get it going, and especially in that fourth quarter, Derrick ended the game with 19 carries for 119 yards, averaging 6.3 yards per carry, and 35, and had a big 35-yard run, which is his longest of the game. So Derrick Henry still ended up having a great game. Shout out to Derrick. We love him. Keaton Mitchell didn't really do much. 4 carries for 11 yards. Mark Andrews had 2 tush pushes. Justice Hill had 1 carry for 2 yards. And then Lamar didn't really take off in this game. He had a big 13-yard rush, but that was the only time he really took off in this game. And he did have a couple of quarterback kneels as well. But 5 carries, 14 yards, nothing too crazy for Lamar running the ball wise. But again, he was kind of taking it a little bit slow because of that hammy. But going over to the receivers, this was 100% the tight end game for the Ravens. And obviously we've seen Lamar and the Ravens utilize tight ends a lot. I would say that we utilize tight ends probably more than like any other team in the league in terms of using multiple other tight ends, like using Charlie Kohler, using Isaiah Likely, using Mark Andrews, and they all got used in this game. But if you go here and look, Zay Flowers led the team in catches and yards. He had 5 catches for 64 yards, and he had a big 40-yard catch in this game. It was a big 40-yard catch and run, which he got tripped up on, where he was going to walk into the end zone. But Zay Flowers, 5 catches, 64 yards, led the team in catches and yards. Isaiah Likely was second in catches and yards, which is really good to see because, again, Isaiah Likely is someone who obviously going into this year had a lot of expectations with the connection with Lamar. Then he got that fractured foot in training camp, and he was out for the first, 5 weeks of the season. Wasn't really doing much. Even when Isaiah Likely was coming back, he didn't really have any good plays at all. Like over the past few weeks, he really wasn't getting involved at all. Again, with not having Lamar Jackson, so you can't really look at things in a super big perspective because there wasn't no Lamar, and again, the offense was just a little weird. But now that Lamar's back, this is really like the first time that Lamar and him have kind of gotten to play in the same game together. Isaiah Likely did come back in that game against the Chiefs, but he did nothing in that game. Like, Isaiah Likely did nothing in that game against the Chiefs. He really didn't even have a lot of snaps either. So this was the first real game with Lamar and Isaiah on the field at the same time, both healthy. And you saw it show here. Isaiah Likely 3 catches for 60 receiving yards, had a big 35-yard catch as well. And again, shout out to Isaiah, did his thing. He's going to be utilized a lot in this offense. But shout out to Charlie Kohler, man. 2 catches for 23 yards and a big 20-yard touchdown catch in this game. And then you go over to Mark Andrews, had 2 catches in this game. So again, Mark only had 2 catches in this game, but both of those catches ended up being touchdowns. He had 2 catches for 22 yards and 2 touchdowns. Shout out to Mark Andrews. And then Rashad Bateman, again, yardage-wise didn't really get used. Reception-wise didn't really get used. But Rashad Bateman had 2 catches for 13 yards and a touchdown in the red zone. So shout out to Rashad Bateman getting a touchdown. Again, I'd love to see Rashad get used more downfield. And I think as we go throughout the season, and Lamar obviously is more comfortable and more himself from this injury, which I think he will 100% be after this mini bye going into the Vikings game. But I like to see Rashad Bateman get utilized a little bit more. But he does get a touchdown today. And then Justice Hill doesn't really do anything. Keaton Mitchell doesn't really do anything. Derrick Henry doesn't really do anything receiving-wise. And then DeAndre Hopkins actually doesn't even get a catch in this game. But he does get 1 target on a deep ball. So that was the receiving, the rushing, and the passing for the Ravens. But I do want to talk here about the turnovers that the Ravens defense forced on the Dolphins. And that was Marlon Humphrey getting a fumble recovery and Alohi Gilman getting a fumble recovery. But when we go over here to the defense, man, Travis Jones had half a sack, Mike Green had half a sack, Brent Urban had half a sack, and David Ajabo had half a sack. So nobody getting really credited for a full sack, but the pressure was getting to Tua on a couple of plays. The defense had their really good moments, but they also had their bad moments where the run game was kind of going for the Dolphins, and they were playing pretty well there. Like Devon Achane had some good carries, but he's a great running back, so you can't really take much from that. But when you go over and look here at the tackle for loss, like Kyle Hamilton had a big tackle for loss on a big play. Travis Jones has been playing good. Calvin Noy had a tackle for loss. They've been playing good. Marlon Humphrey had a couple passes deflected. Same with Roquan. He almost had an interception. But when you go over and look at the interceptions, actually, Malachi Starks gets his first interception. Obviously, we talked about the forced fumble from Teddy Buchanan, which Marlon Humphrey recovered. And then Teddy Buchanan and Alohi Gilman punched out a ball, which Gilman recovered. And then Malachi Starks got his first interception. So those were the 3 turnovers that the Dolphins have. Shout out to Alohi Gilman. And I want to say this about Alohi because obviously when we traded when we traded Odafe Owe for Gilman in that like trade with some picks involved as well with the Chargers, it was a little odd trading, a pass rusher when the Ravens pass rusher already wasn't playing well, and we traded for another safety. But what trading for Gilman did, and again, I want to give EDC credit because this has really worked with his defense. What trading for Gilman does is it allows us to play 3 safeties with Gilman and Starks in the back, and then having Kyle Hamilton being able to kind of do whatever he wants, playing up and blitzing the quarterback, playing more back like a linebacker, playing more forward even as like a defensive end. So it kind of allows Kyle Hamilton to roam free and do what he wants to do, which that is his strength. That's what he's good at, is obviously being able to be roaming free. Before we traded for Gilman, he kind of was forced to be in the back, and it kind of limited what he was able to do. But this Alohi Gilman trade, and I mentioned it after the game last week, it kind of has unlocked this defense in a way. And ever since we traded for Gilman, this defense has looked a lot better. More importantly, because Kyle Hamilton is able to be himself and play more up and just be able to be more of a game wrecker, which is what he is. I mean, he's the highest paid safety of all time. We love Kyle Hamilton over here. He's the leader of this defense, in my opinion. Him and Roquan are. Roquan had a couple good plays in this game as well, had a couple good tackles, also almost had an interception that he dropped. But Marlon Humphrey also got a recovery, had some good deflections as well. Alohi Gilman helped punch out a ball with Teddy Buchanan, but Alohi Gilman recovered it, and then Teddy Buchanan also punched out the ball that Marlon Humphrey recovered. So Teddy Buchanan this morning actually got named Rookie of the Month in the NFL, and he went out and kind of proved it. He helped with two fumbles in this game, and he forced one by himself, and him and Alohi were like tag teaming on the other one. So a very good game from Teddy. He is a little bit slow. He does miss some tackles, but he can force some fumbles. He has a really good IQ. And same thing with like Alohi Gilman. Like Alohi Gilman is a good player, but he does miss some tackles. But again, with having Alohi Gilman, it unlocks this defense, and it just makes them play better with having Kyle Hamilton be more of a game wrecker. And we saw it a lot in this game as well. So shout out to the defense for getting unlocked. Shout out to that trade. It's really been looking good for us. Even though Odafe always had a couple sacks for the Chargers, this Ravens defense, especially with the secondary, has looked a lot better. The pass rush for the Ravens still isn't great. We know this. Their edge rushers and their D tackles aren't great. Like Travis Jones has been playing good. Mike Green's been getting to the quarterback. Calvin Noy is a little bit older, but he's still doing all right. But I think if the Ravens can go and get a good signing or a good trade on defense, like if they can go and get like a Quinnen Williams or even like a Jalen Phillips or a Bradley Chubb from the Dolphins, if they can go and get like a good, solid like defensive edge or like D tackle or even like a Calais Campbell as well, like if they can go and make one of those moves, I think that this defense can be unlocked to another level in terms of getting like a game wrecker up front, which is really what they need. They lost Madubuike, and the edge rushers really aren't really holding their weight, but the loss of Madubuike really did affect this pass rush and just the interior a lot. So going and getting a guy to replace that with, and getting a good, like this team is in a position to make a big defensive edge or D tackle move that can really just transcend this defense to another level and really be a missing piece in terms of a Super Bowl run. So I'd be really interested to see if EDC makes one of those moves. The next thing that I want to look at kind of is just the overall stats from both teams. The Ravens had 18 first downs to the Dolphins 17. But if you go and look at the third down efficiency, it wasn't perfect for the Ravens. And this is another thing that I was saying, that we did kind of take our foot off the gas in the fourth quarter in this game. It was a 22-point game. We could have definitely ran up the score more. We did kind of take our foot off the gas late. But even in the first half, they did kind of struggle. Like We'll go over the play-by-play stuff in a second, but in the first half, like, the Ravens had 2 really good touchdown drives, and other than that, they were kind of going 3 and out. So the third down efficiency wasn't great. 5 for 13 on third downs in this game for the Ravens isn't necessarily great, but 2 for 12 for the Dolphins is even worse. So that is something to look at as well. The Dolphins had more plays. They had 62 total plays to 56. The Dolphins had, the Ravens actually had more yards. They had 338 yards to 332 yards. So pretty much an even game in terms of yardage. Both teams had 11 total drives. The Ravens had a little bit more yards per play. The Dolphins had more passing yards. The Ravens had more rushing yards. In the red zone, though, this is something that was huge for this game in general, especially in the first half. The Dolphins in this game, or the Ravens defense, in the first half, they were giving up a lot of yards in this game. You know, they were letting the Dolphins kind of go down the field. But when it got to the red zone, the Ravens really did lock in, clamp down, and do their thing. There was a missed field goal in there as well to help the Ravens' case, but and a couple of turnovers on downs as well. But the Ravens were 3 for 3 in the red zone, and the Dolphins were 0 for 3. So that was a big difference. The Ravens, when they got to the red zone, were converting, which has been kind of a problem this year, but it's nice to see them go 3 for 3 in today's game. The Dolphins were 0 for 3. The penalties were pretty much similar for both teams with 5 each. And then the turnover difference is, again, a huge thing. We've talked about this so many times before that the turnovers can be such a difference in the games for the Ravens. You know, in a lot of the games earlier in the season we were losing the turnover battle. You talk about the Derrick Henry fumbling issue. You talk about really just that. Like the Derrick Henry fumbling issue early on was a big thing, but the defense wasn't forcing any turnovers on the teams that we were playing. But in these past 2 games, they forced a turnover on the Bears, and they forced a turnover 3 turnovers on the Dolphins. So the turnovers are starting to come in bunches for this Ravens defense. Obviously, Alohi Gilman, forces a fumble, recovers it. Teddy Buchanan forces a fumble, and also Malachi Starks gets his first career interception, which is nice to see. And then the time of possession was pretty similar, 31 minutes to 28 minutes in favor of the Ravens. So overall, a very solid game overall for the Ravens. Again, third down could be a little bit better, but again, you have to kind of take into account the short week and stuff. But when you go over here to the play-by-play, the game started off with the Dolphins getting the ball. They had a field goal in the first drive. The kickoff for Tyler Loop wasn't great. And the Dolphins were able to actually get in pretty good field position to start the game. And then the Ravens actually were able to, like, their defense was actually able to play well. Like, the defense didn't even let them get a first down, but they were already in pretty good field position because of the kickoff return, that they were able to get a field goal. Then the Ravens on their first drive looked awful. It was a 3-play, 7-yard drive where Lamar had an open first down, and he kind of threw it a little bit too low to Rashad Bateman. Kind of one of those little rust factors that I was talking about where they just didn't look automatic early on, but then in the second half they looked a lot better. So the game started off with a punt for the Ravens, and all of a sudden it was okay, guys, let's chill out. Defense needs to lock in, and they did. You know, on my Birds with Feather Twitter account, which go and follow the Birds with Feather Twitter account. You can find it in the link in the bio, whatever platform you're listening on. Make sure to give that a follow. But on the Ravens Twitter account, on my Birds with Feather Twitter account, I literally posted and was like, the defense got to make a play here. And then right as I sent that, Teddy Buchanan, Alohi Gilman forces the fumble. They get the fumble recovery. All of a sudden, the Ravens are in amazing field position. They're sitting at like the 7-yard line or something. And all of a sudden, the Ravens are at the 7-yard line. They're in great field position. They give it to Derrick Henry. They get down to like the 1. They give it to Henry again. They get stuffed. Then they pass the ball. It was an overthrow. The offensive line kind of collapsed on the passing play. Lamar kind of had to throw it out. All of a sudden, it's 4th down. And once again, these goal-to-go situations for the Ravens heading into this game have been a big problem all year. Like, short yardage situations have been a problem for the Ravens. They've kind of overcomplicated stuff. But we went forward on 4th down. Lamar passed the touchdown to Mark Andrews for the touchdown. And it was 7-3 for the Ravens. Then the Dolphins drove down the field. They missed a field goal. Then the Ravens got another touchdown, back-to-back touchdown drives. That one was a great drive. Big, long play to Mark Andrews for the touchdown. Then the Dolphins be forced to punt. Then the Ravens punted. Then the Dolphins got a field goal. Then the Ravens punted again. Then the Dolphins turned it over on downs, and the Ravens punted again. So the Ravens had back-to-back-to-back punts after the 2 touchdown drives, and it was a little concerning. The plays just didn't look good. It was back-to-back-to-back 3-and-outs, actually. So very quick drives to the Ravens. Again, 3 plays, 9 yards, 3 plays, 8 yards, 3 plays, 8 yards. So back-to-back-to-back 3-and-outs. That was a little bit worrisome. A lot of that was the offensive line not holding up for Lamar and not really getting the run game going. It just wasn't able to really get going there. So that was a little worrisome. At half, we were running 14-6, but it really didn't feel like we were winning. We were getting outgained on offense by over double in terms of yards, and it just wasn't looking too good in the first half. Then to start the second half, Lamar Jackson came out guns a-blazing, 11-play, 68-yard touchdown drive. Then the Dolphins, we forced a punt. Then the Ravens got the ball back and scored a touchdown. So back-to-back touchdown drives to start the second half. Sitting at 28-6, and then after that second touchdown drive in the middle of the third quarter, we did definitely take our foot off the gas pedal, and the defense was able to lock in, forced a punt, then the Ravens punted, then the Dolphins fumbled, then the Ravens punted, then the Dolphins threw an interception, and then that was the end of the game. So on the last 2 drives, or really 3 drives of the game, we did kind of take our foot off the gas pedal. We did have some yardage in those drives, but we weren't really able to get into the end zone there. And obviously at the end of the game, we just kind of were in victory formation. But overall, did kind of take our foot off the gas at the end of the game. Wasn't anything too crazy, but the Ravens defense was able to obviously force a couple of punts and obviously 2 turnovers in the second half as well, which is really, really good. But again, thank you guys so much for tuning into and listening to this episode of Birds of a Feather. If you like this content, make sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow up on Spotify. Also, make sure to click the link in the bio of whatever platform you're listening on. Make sure to click the link in the bio. Check out the Twitter. Check out the Instagram. During this game on Twitter, I was live tweeting the entire game, so make sure to give that a follow. I also post updates on anytime any stuff happens on there, Orioles or Ravens related. Also, make sure to give the Instagram a follow as well. I post any single time a new episode is out, so you never have to miss it. So, again, thank you guys so much for all the support. Great game from the Ravens. They're sitting at 3-5 moving forward. Again, this is a week-by-week 1 week at a time, come back into the season. They dug themselves a big hole. They got to slowly climb themselves out of it, but they are 2-0 in their last 2 weeks. They're on the right path. They're looking good. The momentum is definitely in their favor, and we get a 10-day break here, a mini bye week heading into next week against the Vikings. So hopefully everything will be good there. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll probably talk about some more updates from this game, anything afterwards, interview-wise, quote-wise, or whatever like that. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great sales day. Go O's, go Ravens, and I'll see you later. Peace out.